Hi, my name is Jules DiBiase. I'm the Director of Digital for Stand Up to Cancer. Um, Building cause awareness among millennials is something that everybody's talking about right now. But awareness doesn't really buy you much if you don't have fans who are willing to champion your brand. So, more than talking about building cause awareness today, I'm going to talk about how to convert viewers of your content to champions of your cause. Okay, so building long-term relationships with consumers is the goal, with the end that you want them to come back time after time to interact with your brand or your product. For nonprofits, it's particularly important for us to build long-term relationships because there isn't always necessarily a tangible product that people are purchasing. This makes reputation one of the most critical elements for any nonprofit brand in terms of consumers' purchase decisions. And you know, at Stand Up to Cancer, we're almost an entirely digital brand. We don't have a brick and mortar storefront that we can send somebody to. So our job is really to build people who will champion our brands, to build a community. Millennials are endemic to social and digital media. This is where they were born and bred. And for that reason, we always advocate a strategy that is very much a soft touch because millennials have a sensitivity to any content that's inauthentic. They have a really good barometer for picking that up. And so you want to have a soft touch, but you also have to have a strong intention because you want to know what you want from the people who are interacting with your brand, and you want to kind of drive them ultimately toward that. So what we'll be talking about today are some of the campaign elements that have been successful for us in taking people from that initial touch point all the way down the line toward becoming fans for Stand Up to Cancer. Okay, so the first principle that we always act on is we want to create relevant content for our audience. And the first thing we're going to do is show a little PSA that we did in 2010 that was specifically targeted toward millennials. So we'll roll that now.
Odds of becoming an astronaut, 1 in 13,200,000. Odds of being struck by lightning, 1 in 576,000. Odds of dating a supermodel, 1 in 88,000. Odds of bowling a perfect game, 1 in 11,500. Odds of being trapped in an elevator, 1 in 24,528. Odds of catching a ball at a major league game, 1 in 563. Odds of an injury from shaving, 1 in 6,585. Odds of tripping while texting, 1 in 10. Odds of getting cancer in your lifetime, 1 in 2 men, 1 in 3 women.
It's up to us.
To change the odds for our generation.
For the ones we love.
For our future.
If you don't like the odds,
Stand up. Stand up to cancer.
So obviously not everyone has access to that kind of celebrity, but I'm not sure that you really need it with this piece. So if you look at the story that was told in that 60 seconds, if you look at each of the individual segments, they told a story. They started you at the beginning with they started you at the beginning with the thought that cancer maybe isn't something that's relevant to you as a millennial. But then as we got through it, we got to the point that cancer affects 1 in 2 men, 1 in 3 women. And because of that, cancer at some point in time is going to affect everyone that we know, unless we do something about it, unless we stand up, unless we change the odds for our generation. So that's the story that was being told. It was, it was created in a way that was relevant to the demographic that we were addressing, in this case, the millennials. And it was also told, in this case, it was told with celebrity, but it really didn't need to be because the story was there. What's more important than celebrity is to create content that's relevant, personal, and emotional. And if you can continue, with those through lines and everything that you do, then it can be very effective. So now we're going to show you a totally different kind of video that I think adheres to some of those principles.
My name's Lauren Kotler. My mom and my dad got divorced when I was really little. My mom got together with her partner, Holly. Now I have 2 stepbrothers from Holly and my mom, and it works. Holly had cancer when I was in high school.
Cancer is a disease that some kinds of it are easier to cure than others.
Something happens that when cells malfunction. If cancer was standing in front of me, I would defeat it because I do not like it.
I had been in terrible pain for about 6 months. I finally took myself to the ER on my day off. This doctor, she said, "We found the source of your incredible pain. And we're really sorry because it must be very painful, but you have some very, very large tumors in your body pressing against your lungs and your heart and your spine, and a tumor that ate a rib." Telling my children that I had cancer was pretty much a parent's nightmare. It's what you never expect to have to do. It's something that I replay a lot in my head.
I felt scared and also sort of sad, like that she got it.
I was really scared because I had heard of cancer and I knew that it can kill you.
I wept and I held them and I said, "I'm gonna fight really hard not to die."
I didn't really know how to be of help or how to act with Holly. When I saw her, it was obviously really hard. My most intense memory was when she was upstairs and just not doing well, and my dad had to come over and carry her down the stairs and they had to take her to the hospital. And that was one of the hardest things to see. Bold, daring, brave, courageous.
I tried to give them outlets to express their emotions.
When my mom was sick, I hanged up pictures that either I drew or they were from school.
I tried not to think that my mom had cancer sometimes.
I did the piano, so that helped me. Played with my pet Cheeky, who's not alive anymore. He died of cancer.
And also I did things I liked, like building Legos, reading, and playing video games. I do like playing video games.
I made a commitment that if I was in the house and not in the hospital, that I was at all physically capable, that I would read to them every night, that our special kind of book time at night would be a touch point for regularity, that the day might be really irregular, but that I would try and make that bedtime ritual regular as it could be with a bald mom, which they found humor in, so it was okay.
Before she had like little haters, we called it Peach Fuzz.
The boy's dad was here all the time, usually just here Sundays, took time off work, and I think it really just showed us the strength that our family has and that families can have in times of need.
I believe this experience has affected my children in myriad of ways that we may not know until they figure it out for themselves when they're older. I think it will appear throughout their lives.
Now I feel still sort of mad that she got it. Not mad at her, but mad at the cancer. And also I feel happy, sort of not happy that she got it, but that she lived through it.
One of the worst things in the world happened to us, and we got through it. So I think one of the lessons on the positive side is to see that a family gets through a hard time by, through love and through honesty and communication, and you come out the other side.
You can't even tell that she had cancer. And so if anyone looked at her, they'd think she's a regular person, but I know that she went through cancer, and I know that was also a struggle, but she did it.
Are you proud of her?
Yes, very.
The biggest thing that we learned from Holly was that time is of the essence, and you just got to spend the time that you have with your family and enjoy.
It's up to this next generation to not be complacent about finding a cure and finding ways to help each other and to make this world a better place.
It's up to me and my peers to make sure that people have a support system throughout their struggles.
Stand up to cancer.
Stand up to cancer. cancer was here right now, I'd pummel it, then man it.
I'd eat it. I wouldn't eat it. I'd smush it. I'd drop a million atomic bombs on it like this. Bam.
Ow, ow, ow,
I'd
ow.
squish it. I'd squish it like this.
Ow! You all evil and that your mama thinks square roots are vegetables. Cancer, you all evil!
Cancer, you are going to be dead like Jiren.
So that's a piece that cost very little to make, but has a huge emotional impact and is relevant across several demographics because it's not just about the parents who have cancer, it's about how cancer affects the entire family. So it was a really effective piece in being emotional and relevant for our audience. But I think this also begs the question of exactly how do you figure out what content is relevant to your audience and what they're really interested in hearing about. The simplest answer to that is that you have to know your audience. You have to ask them. If you want to know what somebody thinks about your organization or what they want from you, you have to ask them. That's particularly important for millennials as well. They want to be participants in the process. So here's one particular post where we asked people in 6 words, describe your experience with cancer. We got 2,221 responses to this particular post, all very impactful, and let's read a few of them. One that's up here right now says, during treatment, I walked among angels. Okay, so that's when you really read into that, you realize that that's somebody who's looking for inspiration. And that helps us because then that's something we do tonally on our page is we try to be as inspiring as possible to kind of give people what they're already out there searching for. Next one says, need to find a cure now. Okay, so that's also very relevant for us and for our brand because what we're about is delivering cutting-edge cancer therapies to patients faster. Okay, so this is somebody who exactly needs that, and they need the hope that comes with knowing that there is going to be a cure. So again, we take that ethos, that idea of hope, and we build that into our brand, and we build that into what we're putting out there for people so that we can be more relevant for them. We learned so much from every public interaction, and here's one where we posted something that we didn't even necessarily think would be relevant for millennials. This says, this is an article from U.S. News and World Report that's about how a wife's breast cancer can hurt her husband's health as well. But we asked the question in general, caretakers, how did you deal with the stress that can sometimes come from having a loved one diagnosed with cancer? We were really, really surprised at some of the answers that we got because it turned into a discussion by millennials about how they've become caretakers for their parents. So for us, this was fascinating. It was unexpected, and it's such a learning experience for us to know that those are the concerns that they're dealing with right now. I don't think we would have intuitively thought that if we hadn't asked. So at Stand Up to Cancer, other than a few of the things that I've already showed you, we actually don't specifically market to millennials. Although, if you look at our Facebook audience, about 50% of them are millennials. And actually, we were recently voted the #1 most trusted healthcare nonprofit brand by the Harris Poll. And again, if you look at what catapulted us into that position, it was very much the support of the millennials. So, and there, we kind of ask ourselves why are they so faithful to us? And I think it's because we're the ones who are out there listening to them. We listen when they talk, and therefore when we talk, they listen back. So that kind of brings us to another interesting thing that we did. So that previous post you saw was a campaign that was very successful for us on Facebook, and it was called I Stand Up For. So we asked people, given that everybody has a connection to cancer, to say who they stood up for. People really very attached to that campaign. We got a lot of interest on Facebook about that, and so then we took it into kind of a crowdsourcing situation. We have a partnership with Major League Baseball, and at some point in time, we were able to hand out placards at Major League Baseball games. So we gave every single person who walked into the stadium a placard that said, I stand up for, and then you could write your name in and with a magic marker. And then during the game, when instructed, the entire stadium held their cards up, and you saw all across the stadium who everybody stood up for. It was a very, very powerful and moving moment, and it was a perfect example of crowdsourcing, really showing how everyone regardless of age, is touched by this disease. So that was so great for us that we thought, okay, let's be creative. Let's bring it into the digital realm. And so we took the placard and we developed a digital version of it where you could fill in who you stood up for, and it would post it on your Facebook page. Well, it turned out that actually wasn't a very powerful campaign for us. So again, we had to look at why, and we had to be creative and figure out, we know this is a strategy that's worked for us in a bunch of different arenas, and we have to be creative about making sure that it's effective and relevant in digital. So we changed it, and we made it a user-generated photo submission contest. So you could submit not only a photo of yourself, but a photo of the person that you stood up for. And I think you'll agree this is a much more powerful and emotional representation of that concept. You can't expect that millennials are going to come to you and your marketing efforts. You have to go to them. And one strategy for going to them, we already know they're on Facebook and Twitter. That's where they live, eat, and breathe. They were born on, not born, but they were raised on Facebook and Twitter. And that's a community that's really easy to mine millennials. However, everyone's out there mining millennials on Facebook and Twitter. So another interesting thing to do is look at micro communities where people already have brand loyalty, where they already feel strongly about another brand or another event or another community that is relevant for your brand, or something that you can make relevant for your brand. So here's a really interesting merchandising campaign that we did, where we took the slogan, "Use the force for good," and we sold t-shirts that said that, and we were able to use this video to get a lot of people interested in the campaign. And let's just roll the video. We can talk about it afterwards.
Ow! Ow! Darth Vader, only you could be so bold.
Don't play games with me, Your Highness. I was on a mercy mission. You weren't on any mercy mission this time.
I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
You passed directly through a restricted system. This is the restricted system. This is you, passing through.
Hey, you. Take these two over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner.
Oh, I was gonna go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters. You know?
I find your lack of faith disturbing. Ah, cramp. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, which is a very good time. Average ship takes 18 to 20 parsecs.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
Ooh.
Oh, Tusken Raider.
Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. And I brought this.
Hold on, I'm listening to something.
You'll strike me down now, will be more powerful than you possibly can imagine.
Yeah! Come on!
Do or do not. There is no try. I mean, try your best. Just do it.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside. Am I right?
What's up, Chewbacca? What's up, my Wookiee? You still hanging out with this loser?
I know I didn't do it right, but I mean, I'm just,
If only you knew the power of the dark side.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
That's me.
No! Yes!
Oh, that's right. It's no. Okay.
And now, young Skywalker.
You will die.
It's a trap!
Hello, what have we here?
I love you. I know. I was just kidding.
What? Ah, burn! Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder!
Who you calling scruffy looking? Use the force, Luke!
So we took a brand that people already obviously had a deep attachment to, Star Wars, and it doesn't have to be Star Wars. It can be something much smaller, much personal, much more relevant to your brand, right? This isn't necessarily relevant to cancer, but we were able to find the relevance through saying, use the force for good. There was some overlap between our brands. But if you can find things that are, instinctually relevant to your brand, then it's easier to kind of come up with those community activities and those community events around that kind of synergy. So in this case, we built this merchandising campaign, but the bottom line is what you want to do is you want to find where your fans already commune, because there's likely to be other people who are interested in the same things as them. You want to find where your friends already commune, and you want to go to them. You want to bring your brand to them. You don't want to wait for them to come to your brand. Okay, and all this leads toward one end goal, which is, and that end goal is different for every nonprofit organization. Ultimately, for Stand Up to Cancer, because we raise money for cancer research, and that's what we do. We raise money to fund doctors. We're always ultimately looking for a donation from people, but we have to figure out how to get that. We have to know the roadmap of how we get from, what we want from people, from an initial interaction with people to what we want from them in the long run. It's not always a direct path, and it's not always a fast path. And this is what works for Stand Up to Cancer. This isn't necessarily what works for everybody. We usually start with the kind of thing you just saw, which was a celebrity or a partner PSA or a campaign that's out there in social media. We next, if we haven't started in social media, we always take people next to social media. So the next thing we're asking for from someone after they've had a touch point with our brand, we're asking them to like us on Facebook, or we're asking us to follow us on Twitter. This gives us a way to communicate with them, to start the process we were just talking about of asking questions, finding out what's relevant for them, bringing them into the fold. And as we do that, we start to trickle out information about Stand Up to Cancer. So there's a drumbeat at Stand Up to Cancer about science and about research, and that's what we're really into. We realize that not everybody connects with our cause just for that reason. But we want everyone to know what we do. So before we get that information out to them, we spend some time listening to them and building their trust and allegiance. Likewise, donation for us is somewhere down the line, because first we're looking to make a connection with those consumers. And frankly, they should make sure that they're comfortable with Stand Up to Cancer and that they like us and they're going to stay with us before we're asking for a bigger commitment from them, like reading more of like a white paper on our science, or making a donation, opening up their wallets, making a donation. Before you can ask for that, you really need a level of comfort with the organization, and people will self-select. So someone has found you through a PSA or a campaign, and then they've landed on your Facebook or Twitter, and they don't like the content they see, they're going to leave. But so after a certain amount of time, you want to start asking people for something more. You want to get to whatever your end goal is. But now, given that, and we know that I said Stand Up to Cancer in particular, our end goal is donations for you. Maybe your end goal is just simply having a communication channel. So maybe your end goal is just getting someone on Facebook or Twitter. Maybe your end goal is having them take more of an activist stand. So maybe it's having them, write to their congressman or march on Washington, or whatever other options there might be out there for your organization. But ultimately, sometimes it takes a while to get to that goal. And so for us, it's donation. One of the most important things for us is that we don't pop that question too early. So we talked about at the very beginning that this is a relationship. It's a relationship between the consumer. It's a relationship, and by consumer, I just mean someone who touches your brand. So for nonprofit, when I say consumer, I just mean someone who consumes your content, someone who consumes your brand. So the relationship between that consumer and the organization is a long-term relationship. It's not a short-term relationship. And you kind of want to use the same principles for that business relationship that you do for a real-life relationship. When asking for that follow-up action from a consumer, whatever that action is, you don't want to ask that. You don't want to ask for that too soon. Okay, so once you have loyalty, donations and things like that will come from your consumers. Okay, so just reviewing kind of the overview of everything that we talked about. First of all, for your brand, you want to create content that's relevant to your audience. And that's a feedback loop. So you always want to ask your audience, what's relevant? What's relevant? You want to adjust. You want to read what they write. You want to read their comments. Don't just ask. The worst thing you can do, even worse than not asking, is to ask and not read or respond when people are interested in communicating with you. So you create the content. You have a feedback loop where you know whether the content has resonated with your audience. You're creative about new ways to get that messaging out, whether that's in the digital medium or, you know, tying digital into the various different, you know, real-world platforms that are out there, events, etc. You also want to then go meet people where they are. Meet them at the events that they're already at. Meet them at the brands that they already touch, things they already have trust and brand loyalty with, and so that you can kind of you can capitalize on that brand loyalty and bring them into your fold as well. And you need to know the roadmap. You need to know that to get from point A to point B, it isn't necessarily a quick process, but it is a process, and you need to know that for your organization, you have a way to get from here to there, and it's a plan. It's not an accident. And lastly, of course, for us and for anyone who's soliciting a donation from a consumer, you don't want to pop that question too early. You don't want to come out asking for money. You want to come out asking, particularly for millennials, what they think. So it's really about, you know, finishing off and asking that. And then last slide, if you have any questions about this talk, or if you have any questions about Stand Up to Cancer, I'd be happy to answer them because we listen. So here's our Facebook and our Twitter and my personal email address. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference.